Best Actor of the Year, Gene Hackman receives his Oscar from Liza Minnelli.
The mysterious deaths of Hollywood icon Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy, a classical pianist, left many unanswered questions.
Gene Hackman didn't pass quietly into the night. Instead, he left behind an $80 million storm. Cash, sprawling estates, hidden stocks, and investments so secret they were whispered about in shadows. But beneath the wealth lay something far more dangerous, a ticking time bomb of shattered trust and buried betrayals. Every dollar carried the weight of hushed arguments, sleepless nights, and letters too damning to send. His fortune didn't just build empires, it destroyed them. Gene Hackman didn't just leave a legacy, he left a curse. Gene Hackman's great escape. Gene Hackman was once called an immortal monument of Hollywood, a shining star whose face lit up many screens. Yet even the brightest stars eventually fade, disappearing quietly into the dark of night. Hackman, one of the greatest film legends, chose a path no one saw coming. He left the world of movies without any big parties, tearful goodbyes, or tell-all books. Instead, he quietly vanished from the public eye, leaving behind whispers and memories. Hackman found his peace far from the busy streets of Los Angeles for many years. He bought a small home in Santa Fe, New Mexico. This town was hidden away just enough to keep the bright glare of Hollywood at bay. The red dirt roads wound gently through the high desert, and dark pine forests rustled in the wind. In this quiet, wild land, Hackman could live a simple life, away from the clamor of film sets. Locals would often mention the tall, thin old man riding his bicycle on the quiet roads. One grocery store clerk even said, "He looks like someone I've seen before," hinting at the distant memory of a man who had once lit up the silver screen. Even though Hollywood tried to call him back with offers from young directors and new film projects, Hackman did not answer. He had built a strong wall around his life. In one rare interview, he said, "I've said everything I need to say." By the time he was 90, the lure of fame and fortune no longer mattered. All he wanted was peace, a calm, quiet life that had long been missing during the hectic days of movie making. But even in his quiet retreat, not everything was calm. Rumors began to spread among the people of Santa Fe. They said that the old man's health was failing faster than anyone expected. Stories circulated about small falls from his bicycle and occasional heart pains that he tried to hide. It seemed that the bright, bold star of yesteryear was now only a faint shadow of his former self, slowly fading as time wore on. The sadness in Hackman's life was not only about his failing health. Over the years, the distance between him and his family had grown too. Hackman had 3 children from his first long marriage to Faye Maltese, a union that lasted 30 years before ending in a bitter divorce. His daughter Elizabeth once said that her father was always busy with work, never really there to share simple moments like family dinners or bedtime stories. And after he married Betsy Arakawa, a pianist much younger than him, the gap between him and his children only widened. Though he showered them with money and gifts, no amount of wealth could fill the emptiness left by years of lost time and broken closeness. Choosing a life of seclusion was not just about finding peace for Hackman, it was also a way to run from the hurt and anger that had built up over the years. Family gatherings became rare events, and phone calls turned short and filled with silence. Even Christmas lost its warmth, as the old star chose solitude over the painful reminders of lost connections. Deep down, Hackman feared that any attempt at reunion would bring only disappointment, revealing the cracks in relationships that time and fame had deepened. In 2004, after finishing his part in the film Welcome to Mooseport, Hackman made his final exit from Hollywood. There were no grand farewell parties, no heartfelt tributes from the studios that had once cheered his every move. He slipped away quietly, leaving behind only soft echoes of his past glories and a trail of questions that no one could answer. His last years were spent reading old books, scribbling thoughts in a journal, and even trying his hand at painting the vast, wild landscapes that surrounded him. People who caught a glimpse of him at a local market spoke of a lean, quiet man with deep-set eyes that still held a spark of his old self. Often, he would sit alone on his porch as the sun set behind the mountains, watching as the sky turned a deep red. In those simple moments, he seemed truly free of flashing cameras, false praise, and painful memories. The mystery that stunned Hollywood. Although he was known by millions for his work on the big screen, there was one mystery that clung to Hackman even in his quiet life. In the mid-1990s, rumors began to spread about a private group called Foundation Hackman. No one really knew what this foundation was for, and its true purpose remained a mystery. All that was left were a few old papers and a handwritten letter that Hackman had written to himself. In that letter, he wrote, "I did this not to leave wealth, but to leave control." These simple words sparked many questions and led people to wonder why he would work so hard to hide his money. As the years went by and Hackman's health began to fail, the Hollywood press started to look more closely at the last clues of his private life. Some reports said that he had secretly made a will many years earlier. In that will, he carefully divided his things so that there would be no fights among his family. Other people believed that he had given most of his fortune to a charity that no one knew about. They thought he did this quietly, perhaps to make up for things in his past or to help those in need without drawing attention to himself. The less he appeared in public, the more people talked about him, and his hidden life became a hot topic for gossip. Then one gray morning in New Mexico, the news came quietly. Hackman had passed away. The sun had not yet touched the red peaks, and there was no big announcement, just a small piece of news in a local newspaper.
This morning, heartbreaking details emerging about the final week of Gene Hackman's life. Authorities revealing the legendary 95-year-old actor died of heart disease, complicated by advanced Alzheimer's, after being alone for several days after his wife and caregiver, Betsy Arakawa, died first of an unrelated rare virus in their Santa Fe home.
Yet, as soon as the news spread, both the Hollywood media and his own family began to search for clues about his secret life. The quiet life he had led for the past 2 decades now stood in stark contrast to the mystery that was his true legacy. At first, the family found what seemed like a simple handwritten will from 2001. This will listed just a few common things: a small house in Santa Fe, a bank account in California, and an old vintage car he had kept since he was young, a classic Hudson Hornet. The total value of these items was estimated at less than $5 million. For someone who had been a big star, this did not seem like much money at all. It was as if Hackman had not wanted his real fortune to be known. But as family members and close advisors looked deeper into the old documents, a very different picture began to appear. It turned out that Hackman was not only a star in movies. Even at the height of his career in the 1990s, he had been busy building a hidden financial network. He used a mix of stocks, real estate, investment funds, and secret offshore transfers to hide his money. Instead of putting his wealth in plain sight, he chose to work behind the scenes. Many of these secret accounts were set up in names that were not his own, with funds placed in countries like Switzerland, the Cayman Islands, and Singapore. All the money eventually led to one main account, a secret account he had created in 1993, soon after winning his second Oscar. When all the clues were finally put together, it was clear that Hackman's hidden assets were worth more than $80 million. This huge number shocked even the people who had been close to him. They had always believed he had a good amount of money, but no one had ever imagined that his secret network was so large and well hidden. The family was not only stunned by the amount of money, but also by the care and skill with which he had kept it secret. Hackman had never talked about it. He left no clear hints about why he had chosen to hide so much wealth from even his own family. The big question that still lingers is, why did Hackman do all this? Some say that he was just a very private man who did not want the burden of fame and fortune to rule his life. Others think that he had deeper reasons, a need to control his own destiny and protect his money from being misused. His famous handwritten letter, which spoke of leaving control rather than wealth, has only deepened the mystery. It makes us wonder if Hackman saw his hidden network as a way to keep his life in his own hands, even after he was gone. Hackman's hidden world. Following the news of Hackman's passing, a quiet storm began to brew within his own family. It was not the media that started the talk, but the grown children who suddenly realized they had never really known their father. They soon learned that Hackman had built strong walls around himself, walls that were both emotional and financial. His children wondered if he was afraid that showing his true wealth would lead to endless fights and bitter disputes among them. Almost immediately, whispers of hidden money and secret plans spread through the family. Lawyers, financial experts, and even private detectives were brought in to follow the trail of money. Yet, every time someone thought they were getting closer to the truth, it became clear that Hackman had been many steps ahead. He had set up anonymous bank accounts, used shell companies, and made cash transactions that left no trail. Every piece of the puzzle was carefully planned. His children slowly realized that the man they thought they knew had spent years building a secret world of money that only he could control. When some of his assets were finally revealed, all that appeared were a modest house in Santa Fe, a classic car, and a few bank deposits. But everyone knew that these items were only a small part of what Hackman had built over many years. Deep down, his real fortune lay hidden in the secret world of finance, a world in which he held all the keys. Now, with him gone, that secret had taken its final breath along with him. The vast fortune that might have been the family legacy was now reduced to a few visible pieces. It was as if Hackman had chosen to leave behind only a few crumbs of his life, hiding the real treasure well away from those who loved him. His decision was not just about money. It was also about control. Hackman wanted to control every part of his life, even after his death. One day, an old wooden door of the Santa Fe house creaked open. A weak, yellow light seeped into the dusty room, revealing a space filled with memories of a long-forgotten past. The smell of rotten wood and old paper filled the air, adding to the feeling of loneliness. In that quiet, frozen place, the Hackman family stood silently, facing a world where time seemed to have stopped. The gray wooden floor held only broken memories and scattered hints of what once was. That evening, the family gathered around an old wooden table. They opened wooden boxes and uncovered old envelopes hidden in the far corner of a dusty storage room. None of them were ready for what they would soon find. Inside those faded envelopes were not the official wills or bank statements they had expected. Instead, they found handwritten letters that Hackman had never sent. Each letter seemed to carry a small piece of his heart and soul. The very first letter was dated from the winter of 1995, not long after he had finished filming the movie Crimson Tide. In that letter, he reached out to his eldest son, Christoph, with whom he had not spoken for 15 years. The letter was short and clear. "I know I have never been the father you expected, but you must understand, I have never belonged to anyone, not even my family." Reading those words on a yellowed piece of paper cut deeply into Christoph's heart. Although he was not completely surprised by the message, seeing it written down made the pain real. Other letters were filled with memories and feelings of regret. One letter, written to his youngest daughter Elizabeth on her 30th birthday, spoke of long, lonely evenings spent in a quiet living room while watching old family tapes. In that letter, Hackman admitted, "I always thought that distance was the best way to protect you, to keep you from living in my shadow. But now I wonder if I was just protecting myself." These simple words, written long ago and hidden away in a forgotten drawer, revealed the hidden corners of a man who was more than just a Hollywood star. Each letter laid bare a part of Hackman's soul. They showed a man who was torn between his wish to shield his family and his deep need to keep his own sense of self. There was a famous actor who had achieved great success on the screen, yet he chose to live a life of isolation when it came to love and money. His carefully guarded secrets left his family with more questions than answers. They could only wonder why he had chosen to build such high walls around himself and his fortune. Family left in the dark. The deeper the Hackman family dug into the old drawers, the more they found pieces of a complex puzzle. They discovered strange financial deals, money transfers that made no sense, and, most shocking of all, a list of secret beneficiaries. Hackman had made his own special inheritance list, one that left out any of his family's names. Instead, millions of dollars were given to strangers. A childhood friend in California, a former assistant who had retired in the 80s, and even a waiter from his favorite restaurant in Santa Fe. Why would Hackman choose these people? And why was his own family left out? No one knew the answer. Shock and anger filled the room like crashing waves, submerging each family member in a storm of feelings they could not escape. That night, The first argument erupted. Christopher slammed his fist on the table, his voice rough with anger. He never trusted us. Everything we thought we knew about him was a lie. He lived his whole life as an actor, and even in death, he was still acting with his own family. His words echoed in the small room, making it clear that the pain was deep and raw. Elizabeth could not hold back her tears, not from anger, but from the hurt of realizing that the father she had once adored was now a stranger. She clutched the old letters to her chest as if they were the only pieces of her father left in the world. Memories of simple Sunday mornings, when Hackman would sit by the window reading the newspaper, suddenly faded away under the harsh light of truth. The emotional shock did not end there. When the family lawyer finally shared the list of secret accounts that Hackman had left behind, the whole family was nearly frozen in place. A large sum of over $20 million had been transferred to an unknown charity just months before his death. This charity had no public name or clear purpose, only a cold acronym, GH Legacy Fund. No one knew how this fund worked, where the money would go, or what Hackman truly meant to do with it. But one thing was clear. Hackman had decided to trust strangers instead of his own family. In that old house, tears fell onto the wooden table, soaking through faded letters and old papers. The Hackman family had lost more than just a father and a husband that night. They had lost their last chance to understand him, to find reconciliation, and to hear any kind of apology from the man they thought they knew. All that remained were torn letters, blurry memories, and an eternal question. Who was Hackman, really? Was he a failed father, or was he simply a lonely soul until his last breath? Some families are born to bask in the light, while others must bear the heavy shadow of a legend. The Hackman family carried that shadow every day. The name Gene Hackman was a source of pride in Hollywood, yet for his family, it was a constant reminder of a man who had built a life of secrets. Christopher and Elizabeth, who grew up under the weight of their father's fame, could never escape the label, Gene Hackman's children. Even as adults with their own lives, every achievement they made was compared to his iconic roles and his Oscar wins. Nothing they did ever seemed to be enough. When the secret doors to Hackman's wealth finally opened after his death, and Betsy Arakawa's passing, the heavy burden on the family did not lift. Instead, it turned into golden shackles, shiny and valuable, yet even tighter than before. The promise of wealth had turned into a curse, tying them to memories of a man who had always kept them at arm's length. The hidden key. Among piles of official-looking papers stamped with government seals found in the quiet halls of Hackman's old mansion, there were many documents with parts of the text blacked out. There were blueprints of buildings and properties, some of which were not even in Hackman's name. It was as if he had spent years gathering secrets, hidden in plain sight. But the mystery did not stop there. Buried beneath these documents, the family found something that made their hearts pound with fear and wonder. Tucked inside a sealed envelope was a small, worn key. Though old and faded, the key was still intact. One of the agents in the dim light held it up and whispered, "This belongs to a safe." But where was the safe? Had Hackman hidden it somewhere on the property, or was it kept in an even more secret place? The FBI quickly realized that Hackman had hidden something very important, and he had died before anyone could learn what it was. With every new discovery, more questions popped up. Why did Hackman hide these official documents under the floor? What was on the tapes that came with them? And why did they have a label that said, "Do not view"? And what was the secret behind the key? Some people believe that Hackman had uncovered something dangerous, something he was never meant to know. Others think he was trying to protect someone or something. Either way, the timing of his death now seemed too strange. Did he die of natural causes, or was he silenced because he knew too much? The FBI has not let anyone in on the full story. Public records about the case have been sealed, and even the agents who searched the mansion have gone quiet. Hackman's own family would not say much about what was found. They all wondered, what is so secret that it must be hidden from the public? One agent, speaking only on the condition of anonymity, hinted that the truth is far more disturbing than people realize. But he would not say more, leaving everyone with even more questions. As more details emerged, theories began to spread. Some believed that Hackman was involved in a secret government operation. The hidden documents and official seals suggest that he may have known things that were classified, details that most people were never meant to learn. There are whispers that the mansion was once used for something dark and hidden. Some even say that there was an underground chamber used for secret meetings or to store dangerous items. The small worn key might be the only clue to unlocking a safe that holds secrets much bigger than anyone had imagined. As the investigation goes on, every new piece of evidence only adds to the mystery. The documents, the blueprints, the tapes with their warning labels, and the key all suggest that Hackman's life was full of secrets that he took to his grave. Many now wonder if Hackman's death was just a coincidence, or if it was time to protect these secrets. The careful planning and strange clues have led some to believe that his death was no accident. Instead, it may have been part of a larger, hidden plan. The secret safe, which the key is meant to open, remains a mystery. Where is it? And what could be inside that would be so dangerous or important that it had to be hidden away so carefully? Even the FBI is left with more questions than answers. They know one thing for sure. Hackman hid something that he believed must never be found. His silence now speaks louder than any words could, and his hidden life continues to stir up theories and fears. The Forbidden Fortune. In a quiet room in Santa Fe, the lawyers began to read Hackman's 100-page will. Each word seemed to lift off the paper and float in the still air. The will showed that Hackman had left more than $80 million in assets. There were shares of real estate in California and New Mexico, art collections, vintage cars, and secret investments that no one in the family had ever heard of. Yet, along with this huge fortune came strict rules. Hackman had left conditions that were as chilling as they were clear. No family member was allowed to use the Hackman name for writing books, making films, or selling any of his private stories. There was also a rule that no one could go public about the assets in the press. Among these conditions was one that struck fear into everyone, a secret fund called the Untouched Fund. This fund had been set up in the 1990s, and for over 30 years, not even his wife knew what lay inside it. The rule was simple but harsh. If any family member touched this fund, they would lose the right to inherit any of the remaining assets. This fund was like a forbidden zone, a sacred space that Hackman kept for himself. Even in death, it stood as a symbol of his absolute control over his life. He had made it clear that his money, and the story behind it, was not meant to be tampered with. While alive, Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa had been seen as the perfect couple. They lived in a wooden house that Hackman had designed himself, nestled on a 12-acre plot in the mountains of Santa Fe, far away from Hollywood's scandals. Their close friends, Daniel and Barbara Lenahan, still remembered the peaceful afternoons spent together. They recalled Hackman painting at his easel while Betsy quietly brewed tea, both smiling contentedly as they enjoyed the beauty of nature. Many called it the ideal life, but beneath this calm and peaceful front, Hackman was always in control. Betsy once confided in a close friend, saying, "Gene is the perfect husband, as long as I don't touch what he calls his personal legacy." This personal legacy was not just his work in film, it was also the right to shape and control his own story. He made it clear that no one, not even his wife or children, was allowed to rewrite or share his true history. This control weighed heavily on his children. Christopher, his son, felt the burden of the Hackman name the most. He had always dreamed of being a director, but every time he stepped onto a film set, his father's shadow loomed over him, making him feel like a poor copy of Hackman. Even when he tried his hand at business, the heavy expectation never left him. When the will was announced, Christopher almost laughed. "He won," he said. "Even in death, he controls everything, even our thoughts." Elizabeth, the youngest daughter, had long hidden away with unfinished paintings, hoping that her father would leave her some freedom. But the cold words of the will dashed that hope. There were no heartfelt messages or warm memories, only strict rules, endless clauses, and threats of disinheritance. For the family, the vast fortune felt like a heavy weight tied to their feet, dragging them into a deep ocean of expectations. In their hearts, It seemed as if Hackman was still watching them from a distance, cold and unmoved, as each child struggled under his long shadow. Rumors soon began to spread about the untouched fund. In Hollywood circles and family circles alike, whispers flew that Hackman had secretly moved money into off-the-books investments or even set up an anonymous charity under another name. No one was sure what lay behind the secret fund. Even Hackman's lawyer admitted, "Even I don't know what he hid there." Betsy had once tried many times to ask Gene about it, but he would only say, "There are things you shouldn't know, and neither should our children." Now, with both of them gone, that mystery began to haunt every family member. They did not know if they should protect the secret legacy or break it apart to uncover the truth. In the end, as tears mixed with heated words in the Santa Fe living room, a bitter truth emerged. The greatest legacy that Hackman left behind was not his money or his fame. It was a broken family caught in the grip of a legend who continued to rule over them even after his death. The rules, the cold will, and the secret fund all served as reminders that even when a man is gone, his control and his choices can still shape the lives of those left behind. What do you think? Was Hackman's need to keep his secrets a way to protect himself, or did it end up costing his family the chance to truly know him?